so it comes down to this. Just two teams remain and they do battle this weekend in the 2019 Suncorp Super Netball Grand Final. It will be the Lightning playing host to the Swifts. Jack Heverin and our wardrobe designer Sharni Layton here for our grand final edition of the Weekly Pivot. It's thanks to Blooms the Chemist, your first call pharmacy professionals. If you're wondering why we're wearing these shirts, well, I left Sharni in charge and the rest is history, as they say.
I was trying to...
Why are we wearing these?
Because it's the grand final. It's in Brisbane, the Sunshine Coast. They obviously can't have the grand final up there, so we're just getting in the vibe of it. And I thought, what can we wear? And then I realised that me and my fiancé had matching kits, so I thought that I'd put you in it and you can be my matchy-matchy for today.
Yeah.
So we're in grand final spirit. And I'm even proud that I matched with the Weekly Pivot, with Blooms the Chemist. We're just killing it today.
Can I just pose you one question on the shirts? Did it ever cross your mind that your fiancé is 6'6" and that I'm at best in high heels 5'8"?
Well, I thought you might have put on a little bit of weight today. I just thought, oh gosh, it's only been a week since I've seen you. But should we kick our shoes off?
No, I'm going to keep mine on just in case.
OK, all right.
I don't want you to think any less of me.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm going to fit another person. Hey, the reason that we are down to the grand final edition is on the back of last week's. The Swifts had to back up and play again for a second time around in the final, and they were very, very good, Sharni. 60-47, the final result. Look at that shooting percentage as well.
Oh, look, I actually can't believe it, Jack. After... You know, the week before when the Vixens killed the Magpies, everyone had backed them in to win this game. And Bryony Akel, the coach of the New South Wales Swifts, came out during the week and said, people aren't backing our team and we deserve more respect.
Yeah.
We deserve more respect from everyone around. And I was like, well, I thought that actually might fire the Vixens up to be like, you know what, no, we're going to come here and stamp our mark. But they weren't able to do that at all. And the Swifts came out so strong, getting a huge lead at the start of the game.
Yeah.
And then the Vixens just weren't able to catch up. It was like they'd almost given up in that, maybe not second half, but definitely in that last quarter. But it's so hard to play on another team's turf, and that is exactly what the Vixens had to do going into the Swift Stadium. They played at the Key Centre, which only holds 3,000 to 4,000 people, and to have that crowd behind them is definitely an eighth player out on court.
It was loud, that was for sure. So it takes us to what's coming up this weekend, the grand final, and it's all thanks to Blooms the Chemist, your first call pharmacy professionals, the Lightning and the Swifts, Sunday 1 o'clock, which has been a great time slot all year. A huge opportunity for the Lightning chance, not only to host the grand final, but to have sat back over the last week and have their players put their feet up and relax and just watch how it all unfolds. So they're in a great spot leading into this grand final.
Yeah, they really are. And it's a huge advantage for any team when you win that semi-final to go straight into the grand final. I know the two premierships that I won with the Adelaide Thunderbirds, we had that privilege as well. And you get to sit back, A, you're resting your bodies, but B, you are also having the opportunity to watch the team, really analyse how they played, because they have to put their best netball out against that team that they play against. And so you get more time to each other, to be able to spend that time together, have that bonding session, and then to go out and really attack the game on the weekend. So I think Lightning are definitely looking good heading into this weekend.
Oh, there's a fair bit to play for the Lightning as well, which we'll talk about. So the teams, I reckon by now we've got a pretty fair idea of how they all look, but in particular, a couple of very, very important players. So our team updates. Well, some of the individual matchups are going to be absolutely fascinating, Sharni, and there's a couple of unsung heroes that you want to talk about today as well.
Absolutely. And look, I'll put my hand up and say I probably wrote the Swifts off a little too early last week, and I said that these three ladies, Paige Hadley, Helen Housby and Sarah Cloud, needed to step up, and they did, Jack.
That's because they watched this show. They would have seen what you had to say.
Paige Hadley, 19 goal assists. Helen Housby, 19 from 21 shots. And then Sarah Clow had 8 games on the weekend. They all stepped up. They all played amazing. And they really conquered the Vixens. But one girl that we didn't chat about was the girl on screen right now. Maddie Turner had a phenomenal game on the weekend. And, you know, I think she's been quiet in the last couple of weeks, but she really stepped up and really took over. Tegan Phillips struggled against her. Tegan Phillips stops on the pass. Maddie, she ran through in that first quarter. She was a huge reason that they got that early start. So congratulations, Maddie, for having such a great game. But it's a whole new kettle of fish with her coming up against Steph Wood on the weekend. Because Steph, they played against each other, or with myself at the Swifts. And so they know each other's game so well. So it's going to be, as I said, much harder game for her this weekend.
It's a big challenge. She's got a big, big task on her hands. So that takes us to what's trending for the grand final. There's so many wonderful individual stories when you come up to to a grand final like this, but we love this one, Chance. We love this story.
Yeah, this story is amazing. And so the story today that we're going to be chatting about is Katrina Rore. And the reason being is that if she can manage to help the Swifts get up this weekend, she will be the only player ever to help, or to be a part of the winning team for the ANZ Premiership, the World Cup, a winning World Cup, and also the Super Netball. She has had such great success. You can see her with the pulse here in the ANZ Premiership. Here she's with the New Zealand Silver Ferns as they were the unlikely winners of the World Cup, had not won one ever before. And then, as I said, if she can win this weekend to also win a Super Netball all in 1 year, you know, what a year for her. And even to have the opportunity to be able to come over and play here in Australia, which they haven't been able to do for a few years now, is phenomenal. So all the best to her and her team this weekend, because if you can, either way, she's still had a pretty good year.
But to come into a team late, like she has, and I thought on the weekend her leadership was really important, particularly in that third quarter when the Vixens started to work their way back into the game. Just a bit of composure, a bit of calm, and then they managed to get things back on their terms, and she was a major part of that. Yeah,
absolutely. But that's what that experience brings. So for her to have that calmness, you know, to still play so hard, but just to put confidence in players, as I've mentioned before, is what real leaders do. So the impact and influence she's had on that team, I'm sure Bryony's really been encouraged with the impact that she's been able to have in a short period of time.
All of that, all thanks to Blooms the Chemist, your first call pharmacy professionals. Gee, I'm not sure how you've managed to pick up one individual matchup, Sharni, that you've rated as more important than the other, because all 7, I reckon, are important. But where have you landed?
Well, I've landed in the middle, and this comes back to something that we chatted about last week in regards to Paige Hadley needing to step up. And so this week, I believe it'll be the same again with her against Laura Langman, because at this current point in time, Laura Langman is still the greatest of all time. We saw her, she absolutely dominated with 202 possessions against the Swifts in their semi-finals. So I would be hoping that Paige had looked against what she did against her in that semi-final to be able to counteract that coming into this game. But I think if Paige could shut Laura Langman out, which she hasn't been able to do yet, but isn't impossible. She's still human at the end of the day. That's going to be a huge influence for the Swifts. So for me, that's going to be the matchup to watch. It's going to be huge. It's going to be physical. And I'm just so excited for it. It is. It's going to be off the charts.
Yeah, I was interested in Paige Hadley after the game talking about that they feel like they've got nothing to lose now, the Swifts, and they're happy just to basically throw everything up in the air and see where it lands. But this is a whole nother layer of challenge, isn't it, against Laura Langman?
It absolutely is. And I think that not only for that matchup in particular, but also being in Brisbane, believe it or not, it's actually a neutral ground, because that's not the Sunshine Coast home court. And Paige Hadley has played in 2 grand finals there before when it was still the ANZ Championship. So when we played a grand final there in 2016, only a quarter of the crowd was Swifts, and they were so loud. And I honestly believe that half of that stadium will be filled with Swifts. I believe everyone in Sydney is going to fly up there and get around them. And so I believe it will be a neutral 50-50 contest between the two of them.
Well, by the way, what happened to us taking this show on the road for grand final week? Why are we still here?
I think that's why we dressed up, because we're pretending that we are on the road.
It's the next best thing to actually being there. And the best thing for me is I don't have to put any sunscreen on while we're here, so that's good. To what's coming up this week for In Focus. I like the way that you've headed with In Focus for this week. We've spoken a lot about the game, but there's a particular element in the way that the Sunshine Coast Lightning have put this team together that you want to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Sunshine Coast Lightning, they lost 2 of their big bookends. We all know Caitlin Bassett, Jiva Mento left at the start of the year, But what they have managed to do is hold on to 6 of the players that were a part of the grand final winning teams in the last 2 years. And not only that, they have just announced in the week leading up to a grand final, which is so great to get the team on board, that Carla Pretorius and Fumza Mwini have signed on again for next year, which is huge for the Lightning to show that they're still invested. I know for a fact that Firebirds were really chasing Carla Pretorius, so it's really great that she's shown her loyalty, even though Nolene is stepping away, that she is committed to the club. And it's not only just great for the Lightning, but it's also great news for South Africa, because the more that combination continues to build at this level will mean that they continue to build on the international stage as well, and really help South Africa in the next upcoming international international test matches.
Well done to the Sunshine Coast Lightning, because it's quite often the successful teams get picked off, don't they? Other teams will look at the best teams and try and grab one from here, grab one from there. So well done.
Yeah, it is really good news for them. And especially because people think the conversations aren't happening yet. Conversations are always happening, especially come into the finals time. So it's really hard for players to focus. That's something else that they have to worry about because they're thinking that's not happening. But absolutely, there are teams chasing them down. Like, we need you for next year because, you know, some of those teams like Vixens and Magpies who just slightly missed out, and Giants are thinking, how do we make our team stronger for next year?
It's a jungle out there. It's a jungle out there. The final say. I always get nervous.
There's a jungle in here.
I always get nervous when you make those cat noises.
Yeah.
You crazy cat lady, you. What's the final say? Focus.
So I need to focus. We're still here. My final say for this week, and this is for anyone going into finals out there. Too much celebrations for my liking in regards to teams that have won a game but they're not yet in the grand final. So for me, in round 14, when the Magpies won, they were so excited. They were celebrating like they'd won the grand final, but they hadn't. They sang the song out on court, and you still have a game to go, and you know what? They played their grand final and lost the following week. Then, coming into the next week, we had the Vixens, who were really angry that the Magpies had beaten them the following week. So they came out to prove that they were the number one team in Melbourne. So they came out firing. They're like, we're going to show you, Collingwood, we're the number one team in Melbourne. And they kicked they kicked their butts. And so they could name themselves the number one team in Melbourne. Celebrated to no end, was singing apparently super loud in the change rooms. And you know what, Vixens? You played your grand final. So then coming into the following week when they played against Swifts, they were done. But now the Swifts, I hate to say it, I think they've played their grand final because they celebrated so much. They were so excited to get into the grand final. But you know what? If you're going to win a grand final, you're not excited to get there. You are not excited until you win. And I went back yesterday just to watch the end of the Lightning game when they beat the Swifts, just to make sure that they didn't celebrate. And you know what? They didn't, because they hadn't won the grand final yet. So my final say today, don't celebrate too early. Don't play your grand final too early, because you haven't got that trophy in your hand until that trophy is in your hand.
And with those wise words, I think that's the perfect way to sum us up. It's like having Yoda here. Sharni, who's winning?
It is the Lightning for a three-peat, for Nolene as her goodbye. So Swifts might put up a fight, that they had a pretty shocking round in the third quarter. And I think they'll do it again.
Put your hands down.
I'm Yoda.
I don't know why you're doing that. It's all thanks to Blooms the Chemist, your first call pharmacy professionals. Good luck to both teams. We've had fun pretending to be in the Sunshine Coast. We'll see you next week.